To start off with, you're going to need a pot. I'm using stainless steel. You're going to need some high quality black tea. And if you don't have a SCOBY or some starter tea from a friend, then you're going to use this raw kombucha. But even if you do have a starter culture or a SCOBY from a friend, it would still be the same process. And then you also need some raw organic cane sugar. We're going to bring this filtered water to a boil, and then we're going to add the black tea and then 2 cups of sugar. I'm going to turn the fire off and let the tea sit for about 15 minutes. After it sits, I'm going to go ahead and add it to my vessel. Now we're going to wait for the tea to cool off. Once the tea is 100% cooled off, you're going to add in your starter culture. Do not add your starter kombucha to hot tea. Now, if your friend gave you a SCOBY or some of their starter tea, then now is the time that you would go ahead and add the SCOBY like I'm showing you here. This is just one that I put to the side so I could show you. So if you bought a SCOBY or something like that, you would add the SCOBY to this vessel now. But for the purposes of teaching you how to make your own SCOBY, we're going to add this raw kombucha that I got from the grocery store. That is all you have to do. So the next thing you're going to do is put a paper towel over it, and we're just going to let it sit. You want to keep it out of sunlight, so I just tucked mine away in our pantry closet and put a towel over it. So now about a month has gone by, and I'm going to show you how I make a flavor kombucha. I like to make this blood pressure tonic for my husband with hibiscus flowers, Chinese hawthorn, and hawthorn berries. I just wash off these herbs, and I am going to go ahead and boil them so that I can make a nice hibiscus kombucha. Now, I will tell you guys, the first round that I did this to show you this video, I did over ferment my tea. So you're going to see how big the SCOBY got. So now we're going to go ahead and make some more black tea, because once we do our second fermentation, we're going to need to feed our kombucha. And you'll see what I mean as the video goes on. So we're going to go ahead and add in a cup of sugar. And now, after letting the tea sit for about 15 minutes, I am straining it into another mason jar. So now we're just going to let this sit to the side and let it cool down. This is the blood pressure tea that I made for my husband, and I wanted to also make this so that I can make a blood pressure kombucha for him. So whenever you make your kombucha, you want to always make sure that you sterilize your bottles, because during fermentation, bacteria is alive and thriving. So here we are about a month later, and there is our kombucha. We have created a SCOBY, which is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. Now, I did over ferment this, and I didn't even show it to you guys, so it was actually pretty vinegary looking, but look how thick the SCOBY got. Yes, the SCOBY got that thick because I just left it and it ran out of food to eat. So it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. But your SCOBY will not look like that. It will be just a nice layer on top. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to stir your kombucha very well. And then you're going to go ahead and grab your bottles. Make sure they are 100% cooled down. And now you are going to fill your bottles with the fermented tea, aka your kombucha. And you can also use this kombucha for fermented beans as a starter for your own homemade apple cider vinegar, which I'll show you how to do. So now you can see here is the tea that we made. a little while ago, and now we're feeding the kombucha to do another fermentation. And this is how you keep your kombucha going. Every time you bottle some, you need to feed your kombucha vessel with fresh sweetened tea. So here is the blood pressure tea that I made for my husband, and now I am adding in some sugar, which I don't know why I didn't add sugar when it was on the stove. I don't know, maybe I was going to be giving it to him in the day, I don't remember. So now I'm pouring in the sweetened blood pressure tea into the kombucha bottles. Now, in order for the kombucha to carbonate, that is why you add sugar. Sugar is what the yeast and the bacteria feed on, and this is what gives you the carbonation. So you can see as I'm pouring in the tea into the bottles, you can see the carbonation happening. Now I wanted to do some fruit flavors as well, so I added in the last little bit of tea into my blender with some frozen strawberries, raspberries, and blueberries, and I blended it up, and this is a really yummy fruit kombucha. So you can see when I'm pouring in that fruit smoothie with the blood pressure tea and all the fruits, you can see how carbonated it is because it's like, ooh, sugar, we have food. So you can start to play with all kinds of flavors. You can have so much fun. When I was first learning kombucha, I saw someone who said, make sure you never do cucumber because it basically turns into pickle juice. So never do cucumber, but you can do oranges and pears and apples and ginger and lemons and all kinds of fun fruits. So here I wanted to show you, I am using a ton of apples. My favorite flavor is apple and ginger. I love it so much. And I'm peeling the apples because you're also getting a second tutorial in this video, and I'm going to show you how to make apple cider vinegar, especially if you're somebody who's constantly juicing apples. So I'm just peeling up my ginger a little bit. You don't have to, but when you have the skin on the ginger, it can make the drink a little bit more bitter. So I'm juicing my apples, and I'm adding in the scraps from the apple juice that came from the juicer into a mason jar. You can also save the leftover ginger scraps to make a ginger bug, which I'm going to be showing you guys how to do in another video. So these are all just the apple scraps. Here is our apple juice and ginger juice that I put through the juicer. And now I'm just adding it into a measuring cup to fill into the bottles. And if you want, you can add a little bit of extra sugar so it can feed on more like cane sugar, but you don't have to. You can see that it does carbonate pretty well when you just add this. So unfortunately, after I bottled these, I don't really have footage of me opening them because my husband drank them, but they did pretty well. So here is how you make apple cider vinegar. You're going to put all your apple scraps, your cores, your peels, and everything into a mason jar. And you're going to add in some water into a measuring cup and 1 cup of sugar. You're going to mix the sugar very thoroughly until it's dissolved, and then you're going to add it into the mason jar. And I don't know if you guys can see, but I have a fermenting weight on top of that, on top of the apple cores and peels, and you're going to definitely need that. So here is my SCOBY hotel, which I haven't really talked to you guys about that yet, but I'm adding in a starter culture into my apple cider vinegar just to kind of give it a little bit of a boost for the fermentation. And that's how you make apple cider vinegar: water, sugar, and apple scraps. So just put that in an area that doesn't have light. So after you bottle your kombucha, you're going to go ahead and take it back into your pantry. You're going to leave it in your pantry for about 2 to 3 days for the second fermentation. During that time, just make sure you go ahead and turn the bottles a few times to mix it up well. And then after that 2 to 3 days, you're going to put the kombucha into the refrigerator. it will still continue to ferment a little bit in the refrigerator. You also want to make sure you have really good quality bottles because there are a lot of people who have said that their bottles have exploded. So make sure you invest in good quality bottles. So another thing to note is that during the second fermentation, you might notice little baby SCOBYs forming and floating inside of your bottles. That is totally normal. It just means that your kombucha is alive and thriving. The yeasts and bacteria are still working together, creating natural carbonation and sometimes those tiny cellulose strands that look like jellyfish. It's a sign that your brew is active, healthy, and full of probiotics. Some people strain off the little SCOBYs and all the little symbiotic cultures for a cleaner brew, but they don't bother me and I can't taste them. They're just there. So I just leave them. So here's our kombucha again about 11 days later after we did the bottling. So this is what your SCOBY will look like when you first make your kombucha if you don't over ferment. So here is our SCOBY. It's very healthy and amazing. And I want to show you that you're going to start a SCOBY hotel. I'm leaving in 1 SCOBY in my kombucha vessel. There needs to always be a SCOBY in your kombucha vessel. I could have put the thin one back in there. It doesn't really matter, but you just need to leave a SCOBY inside of your kombucha vessel. So once you start your SCOBY hotel, you just need a clean mason jar, and then you need to add in a SCOBY because every time you make kombucha, you're going to get a new SCOBY. And before you know it, you're going to have a SCOBY hotel, a jar full of so many SCOBYs. And then you can pass these SCOBYs out to your friends and family, and they can make kombucha very quickly. All they have to do is brew some sweet tea, add in your SCOBY and a little bit of the tea that you give them, and they're going to have some fresh kombucha in about 10 days. So I just poured in that SCOBY and that leftover tea into my SCOBY hotel. So I just wanted to show you on your second brew, you need to start your SCOBY hotel. So we're going to go ahead and mix this tea very well. And we're going to do the same thing again. Make sure you mix it well. Now this time, my husband took me to a really nice restaurant and they didn't have any seating, so we sat at the bar and I was telling the bartender, I was like, wow, those bottles are really sturdy looking. And he said that the owner swore by them, so I tracked down these beer bottles on eBay and they are amazing. They're very sturdy, and I actually just recently ordered some more that are amber. The only thing that sucks about them is that they are colored, so you don't get to enjoy the color of your kombucha, but they're really sturdy and they are super airtight. So here is some more high blood pressure tea, which I'm going to have a whole series on lowering blood pressure and gut health. I had a video take off on TikTok about it and people were loving the information that I have on lowering blood pressure. So I'm just adding that blood pressure tea into my Vitamix. I'm adding in some apples and I'm doing berries again. Just some cherries, blueberries, blackberries. So I'm just blending it up, adding in some sugar, because I wanted it to be very carbonated. From what I've learned, I believe the more sugar you add, the more carbonated it gets. And so I'm just adding in this berry mixture into our kombucha. And like I said, these bottles are amazing. If you can track down these Grolsch, I think it's called Grolsch, they're vintage beer bottles. Oh, these are amazing because they're super airtight. People around the world collect these bottles. I believe that they started in 1857, but these are super sturdy, amazing fermenting bottles. So you're going to add your bottles into your pantry, and you're going to let them sit in the pantry for about 2 days. And after they sit in the pantry, then you refrigerate them. These have been in the pantry for about 3 days. And now I'm going to move them into the refrigerator. You can see the carbonation there, look. So here's a little peek inside of my refrigerator. These bottles sat in my pantry for 2 days. Now, I liked these bottles when I first bought them, and I noticed that I got some good carbonation from them, but I've had them now for several months, and my kombuchas are not really as carbonated with these, and I'm going to experiment to add more sugar and see if that makes them carbonate more. But when I first bought them, this was around the time I first bought them, I had amazing carbonation, but now they don't really carbonate as much, and I'm doing the similar flavors that I used to do. So I don't know if it's the quality of the bottle, but I will definitely report back on that. But I can definitely tell you those Grolsch beer bottles,
Look at those bubbles.
Those are the ones you want to have. So you can see, look at that beautiful carbonation. Now this was apple, ginger, clove, and cinnamon. Here is the other kombucha. You can see, look at the carbonation. It's carbonating a lot, and it made a huge mess. I didn't want to open it, you guys. I did not want my kitchen to be a mess, which it was. There it goes. So you can see these Grolsch beer bottles are everything. If you can get your hands on some, get some. But look how carbonated that is. It's amazing. I love to give my husband this one. It's great for blood pressure, and like I said, that'll be in another video, but it's carbonated. It's awesome. Cheers! It's really good. Now I wanted to show you this bottle too. If you're somebody who's bought a lot of kombucha, you can save the bottles because there's so many things you can use these bottles for. And I just wanted to show you there's a little bit of carbonation, but these are not airtight. You want bottles that are airtight so that you can have that really good carbonation. So these bottles are all right. And I have had, I'm not going to lie, I have had some good experience with reusing these ones and some really good carbonation, but I haven't in a while, and I'm not sure if that's because I keep putting them in the dishwasher with the lids and they just get less airtight. But this one didn't really carbonate that much. You can see it in the bottle. It's very lightly carbonated, but it's not as carbonated as those airtight beer bottles. See? It didn't even overflow. But you can still make your kombucha this way. Your kombucha does not have to be carbonated. It's still fermented tea, and you're still getting the probiotic benefits from it. Here was another one. I wanted to show you guys on this last one. I really didn't get any carbonation. But anyhow, I hope this video was helpful. Let me know how your kombucha brewing is going. I definitely think I'm going to be doing some more kombucha videos. Have fun with your flavors. If you already make kombucha, let me know what your favorite flavor is. I want to know. So I wanted to show you guys that I never got around to feeding my kombucha, which is fine. It basically would do the same thing as your SCOBY hotel, or if you do sourdough, if you're a sourdough girly, you know how your sourdough will just form a really nice hard top. So the kombucha, I didn't feed it, but look, it just created that SCOBY on top to protect itself. So if you don't want to keep feeding it and you just need a break, it's okay if you just leave it like this for a little bit of time. Here is even our SCOBY hotel. You can see ever since I added in the new SCOBY and the extra tea, it formed a protective layer on top. So it's gonna always keep forming a layer on top to protect itself. Okay, now lastly, I wanted to show you guys, I finally got around to feeding my kombucha, and I don't want to disturb it. You really want to leave it alone. Don't mess with it. But I wanted to show you, if you guys can see, there are tons of just like these little white dots on top. This is the SCOBY forming. It's not mold. You might think at first like, oh, is it growing mold? No, it's not growing mold. It's just creating the SCOBY. Here, I'll take the lid off so you guys can see. I don't want to disturb it too much. But do you see those little white dots? That's just the SCOBY forming. It's not mold. So enjoy. Don't mess with it. Leave it alone.